Welcome to the video review and bonus materials for Westeros.org's coverage of episode 9, The Dance of Dragons. We'll be discussing dragons in our background material today. We'll be giving you our highs and lows, and then of course we'll cover the whole episode story by story.
With what Drogon did at Daznak's Pit, we've seen something of just how dangerous dragons can be in battle. And this, this is a very young dragon. He's a large one for his age, but he's quite young. Obviously the most famous incident of dragons in battle would be the conquest, when Aegon and his sisters used their 3 dragons, Valyrian, Vhagar, and Meraxes, to basically conquer the 7 kingdoms. I mean, they played a vital role. They burned Harrenhal and had it melt. They were unleashed at the Battle of Field of Fire, where they destroyed the gathered armies of the Reach in the west. They are tremendously powerful creatures.
And then the North just decided,
the North gave up. I mean, the Vale gave up because Visenya basically just flew up to the Eyrie, and they kind of realized there was no safety there. They were tremendous. The only place that held out was Dorne. Dorne was the one place that they refused. And after they consolidated or controlled the rest of the realms, they turned their eye towards attacking Dorne. But the Dornish didn't fight like everyone else. They didn't gather in huge armies. They didn't sit in their castles waiting to be besieged, or in this case, roasted alive. They fled. They hid. They fought a guerrilla warfare, basically. So, in fact, the first dragon casualty was Meraxes, and Rhaenys was allegedly killed. Some say she might have survived and been horribly tortured until she died. No one quite knows the true story, but we know that the dragon died flying over
the Hellholt.
The Hellholt, yes, flying over the Hellholt, and a lucky bolt from a scorpion got the dragon in the eye and killed it instantly.
That's about the only way, really, to get a mature dragon.
Yeah, through the eyes, it's the one really vulnerable area. Well, there's one other way, actually, and that's having another dragon do it for you. Dragons fighting dragons. Now, the material we have from George points out that when Maegor the Cruel usurped the throne from his nephew Prince Aegon, this led to a fight, a war, a brief war, basically. And Prince Aegon, on his young dragon Quicksilver, ended up going toe-to-toe with Balerion, the Black Dread, who was now Maegor the Cruel's dragon, and that did not go well.
It's noted that Quicksilver is a quarter of the size of Balerion, and while young dragons are faster, more agile than the larger ones, they tend to get a little more slow and cumbersome as they age. They also get hotter fire when they age. So Quicksilver's said to have pale flame, and Balerion, the flame actually seems to vary a little bit with the dragon's color, and also with age.
I mean, Balerion
has this black flame.
Black flame, which is hard to imagine. I don't think I've ever seen any artist actually try to depict.
That's true.
Very interesting.
He can melt Harrenhal. His flame has gotten so strong with age, so Quicksilver doesn't stand a chance against him.
And exactly. And then that's said, it's noted in the text, this is the first time since, before the Doom of Valyria that dragons fought with dragons. Which is an interesting note because, yes, as one imagines, when the dragon wars vied for power, there could have been civil wars involving dragons fighting dragons. But now, so that was the first casualty. It would not be the last dragon-on-dragon casualty. Nope. Most famously, or infamously perhaps, the Dance of the Dragons. The war mentioned in this episode between Rhaenyra and Aegon II to over control of the Iron Throne. The family was divided. There was quite a lot of dragons available at the time, and most of them were dead by the end of it. Famous dragons, there's so many famous dragons in this period. The first of the dragons to die, I suppose, would be... now I'm blanking on the name, I'm sorry. Young Lucerys.
Oh yeah, I'm actually blanking on Lucerys' dragon's name as well.
There's so many dragons.
Yes. You have Is Vhagar taking part? Yes, Vhagar is still in...
No, he's still around.
Yes, Vhagar is still around.
But unclaimed at the time.
Yes, Vhagar is the last of the 3 original greats that's still around at this time. Balerion has passed away.
Yeah, in the reign of Jaehaerys.
We don't know quite how. He seems to have just died.
Well, no, that's a good point. Barris and Selmy pointed out how in the books that, you know, they were bred for war, and they died in war. And the implication is that he died in some sort of fighting situation from that. But George doesn't clarify. He doesn't actually provide a conflict for which Balerion is killed. So we don't actually know what happened to him properly.
He might just have died of old age, but it seems...
It's certainly, I think George does indicate that they do die...
Eventually. They're not immortal. I mean, it is mentioned that in some of the dragons, you know, they do grow old, they start getting a little, you know, certainly less active, less fierce with age. And but a lot of the ones that we have during the dance are dragons. There are some very young ones, but then there are some, you know, are really in their prime. I think there's, you know, Prince Daemon's Caraxes, the bloodworm, is perhaps one of the best examples of a battle-hardened dragon. Probably one of the most dangerous in the dance, because he's used him for several conflicts already. Not dragon on dragon, but this is a war dragon.
Yeah.
And then you've got Aegon's own dragon, the Sunfire, who is supposed to be this incredibly beautiful golden dragon.
In fact, his arms, during the war, the siblings kind of differentiate their arms, and he takes on sort of a golden dragon as his emblem. The dragon, I actually thought, after a moment, I thought I'd be like, Arax is Lucerys. So he unfortunately has the misfortune of being sent to Storm's End at the start of it to kind of get Lord Baratheon to support his mother. And unfortunately for him, the other side, the ones who were actually holding the Iron Throne at the time, sent Aegon's brother Aemond, who is a very hot-tempered, violent kind of fellow there. And Aemond is actually the writer of Vhagar.
Yes, he's claimed Vhagar at the time, yes.
Yeah, so and that is the largest and the most powerful of dragons.
A young dragon against an older dragon doesn't really stand a chance.
There's a great depiction from Chase Stone of that battle here, actually. Going beyond that, there's just so many incidents. Yeah. One of the great ones, of course, is when the dragons Tessarion, Seasmoke, and Vhagar Vermithor.
Vermithor, yes.
Vermithor, which is it's a huge old dragon. Not as obviously probably one of the first generation of offspring from Balerion and the rest. Yeah. Who's enormous, and they all 3 end up in this wild melee against one another in the skies.
They're basically riderless at the time.
Yeah,
and that's the only time during the dance that the dragons really danced. Especially, it starts off between Tessarion and Seasmoke, and they're both young. They're not, you know, too young to be dangerous, but they're young enough to be very fast and very agile. So they have this aerial acrobatics fight, and then huge old Vermithor comes in.
Sweeps in, and basically, and it's entirely unclear what Vermithor is after. I mean, it's riderless. It's, you know, was it attacking? It's, you know, was it defending one of its offspring? Was it, I mean, with dragons, one of the things that is emphasized is they're creatures of violence. You know, in the books, when Daenerys briefly controls Drogon at Daznak's pit, it involves violence. She has to whip him and command him repeatedly, no, down, you know. They are, when you direct a dragon, you use a whip to strike, you know, at the left or the right side to tell it which way to go, and you want it to go towards the way that it's been hurt. They turn towards violence. So it's a huge, terrific battle.
It's also brought up that, you know, is it in vengeance for, you know, the rider? Because it's quite unclear. George leaves it quite unclear how much of a bond, what does the dragon to rider bond really mean? Are they going to defend their riders, or do they feel, you know, do they have allegiances of their own? Because they have intelligence, George said, but it's an alien intelligence.
Yeah, they are not intelligent as we understand it. They have their own, and we see this in novels, I think, with Drogon in particular. Their intelligence seems to tie into things that are beyond our understanding, magical things.
He clearly knows what Dany was supposed to be doing in terms of her destiny.
Yeah.
But
here at the Dance of Dragons, it's so difficult to say. Another infamous incident is obviously the riot that led to the murder, the killing of many dragons chained up at the dragon pit. This was a religious movement. This was led by a fellow who came up and basically stirred up the people of King's Landing, the common people, to storm the dragon pit. And, many of the dragons there were very young and could barely defend themselves. And some large ones were killed as well, chained up. Syrax, the great dragon of Rhaenyra, also died. Her son, actually, the youngest son, Joffrey Velaryon, ended up trying to take his mother's dragon to get to the dragon pit to save his own young dragon. And that dragon, unused, they bond to a particular rider with a strange rider on her back, threw him, and he fell to his death. She got to the dragon pit on her own, roaring, attacking, trying to, and ultimately when the dragon pit basically collapses in flames, she's buried under it and dies. It is a tremendous loss of dragons. I suppose the last battles are Prince Daemon's Caraxes, the Bloodworm, against Prince Aemond, One Eye, on Vagar, and that is a battle above the God's Eye. There was a battle, beneath the God's Eye, which actually means by beneath, by some have wondered, they mean in a sense of it's south of the God's Eye. But this
not on the water.
Yeah, but this is the battle above the God's Eye, and the two fought. And famously, the older. I've called him. I mean, he's sort of like the Oberyn Martell of the Targaryens. He is cruel. He is capricious. He is very, very dangerous. Prince Daemon, they when they fly over dragons, they are sitting in saddles and they have these chains to strap them in. So when the dragon turns or tumbles, they stay on. He takes off the chains and basically leaps high above the sky from his dragon onto the back of Vagar and proceeds to kill Aemon, running his sword. Running Blackfire. Yeah. No, it was a Dark Sister.
Dark Sister, I think, is what he's got, right?
I mean, that sounds right. Dark Sister. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Dark Sister for the Eye of Aemond. It is and then they both fall. Yeah,
the dragons are locked together. I mean, I think they're basically plummeting already when he leaps. The dragons are already killing each other. And then
they splash into the God's Eye. Yeah. And then, later, they dredge and they recover the bones of Aemond, and they recover Dark Sister, and the remains of Prince Daemon. I call him the wonder of his age. He was an extraordinary figure. Who knows? There's all sorts of claims and mysteries and speculations.
Yeah.
I think he died, and they just didn't find his body.
Probably. There's the whole leftover mystery of. He was married to Rhaenyra, but at the end they were kind of
fallen
out, and he's got this common mistress, Nettles, who is in fact one of the dragon riders. She tamed this ugly brown old dragon called Sheep Stealer, supposedly by feeding him lots of sheep, and they actually survive the war and.
Yeah, they disappear, and then years later there's claims that this splinter clan in the Mountains of the Moon have decided to call themselves the Bird the Men because they send their young men out to test their courage by leaving an offering to a fire witch and braving the fire of her dragon. So that's cool. The last actual deaths, of course, are Sunfire
and Baela's dragon.
Was it Morning Light?
No, Morning Light is her sister.
Sorry, you're right. You're right. Baela and her sister. Let me just bring this up.
There's too many dragons. There's too many Targaryens. Yeah. See, not even we can remember all those names off the cup.
Brave Baela. Moon Dancer. Yes. Yeah, her very young dragon. When Aegon II takes over Dragonstone, has killed. Rhaenyra. Well, no, actually, that's after. He's taking over Dragonstone. Rhaenyra doesn't know about this. But when he comes in to take it over, Baela jumps onto Moon Dancer and basically fights him. And this is a very young dragon, just barely enough to carry her as a girl. I forget her age. She's like 15 at the time.
She is the daughter of Prince Daemon, by the way, so she's kind of inherited some of that.
Exactly. She has absolutely...
but Sunfire is already injured at this time, because...
Sunfire is very injured.
Yes,
it's absolutely
Aegon and Sunfire were both injured early on in the war.
Very early,
when they clashed with...
Melaye, the Red Queen.
Melaye's the Red Queen, and Rhaenys, the Queen who never was.
Yes.
The wife of Corlys Velaryon. She basically suicide attacked...
certainly when she saw that he had this force range,
she flew her dragon straight at his, and they were both, Sunfire and Aegon were both badly burned, and the dragon has spent a lot of time recuperating, really.
And so it's not fully,
so
it's not fully healed.
It's very surprising that he even manages to get it over to Dragonstone, because they can barely fly.
There's a whole question, a whole mystery. It disappears from the record and then it shows up on Dragonstone. And did it sense where he was and go to him?
Swim
somehow?
there?
Did it swim? No one knows. It's fantastic. So there was this battle, and Moon Dancer dies. Baella falls and barely survives. She has numerous broken bones and so on. But the dragon Sunfire, too injured, blinded by the fire of young Moon Dancer, basically lingers on and eventually dies from the injuries.
Manages to eat Rhaenyra before he dies.
Manages to be fed Rhaenyra. Yep. Basically, this huge bloody mess. We barely even got into the dragon seed and all of that stuff. There's so much. So if you want to read more, there's two ways to do it. There's The Princess and the Queen, which George wrote and released in his book Warrior Women. Dangerous Women. Dangerous Women, The Princess and the Queen.
There's also the Rogue Story. The
Rogue Story has some of the early stuff, but it's not about the dance.
True, but more about Prince Daemon.
And then The World of Ice and Fire contains an account of the whole Dance of Dragons, but it is very compressed. So The Princess and the Queen is a redacted version of a longer Dance of the Dragons that covers the whole dance. And there they cut it down in size to focus it on the titular characters loosely. Rhaenyra and Queen Alicent. I'm sorry. I wanted to say Alicent because I was thinking we were also going to talk about...
But it is Alicent, right?
It is Alicent. I was going to talk about the fact that there was also Silverwing, another famous dragon. Anyways. So many dragons.
So many Targaryens.
So
it's kind of nice that they kind of killed off a lot of them, so there's fewer of them to keep track of now. But...
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's all really cool. So I would say if you want something that's more of a narrative, The Princess and the Queen is what you should be looking for. If you just want to get all the battles, kind of
meat of it,
the main plot points of the Dance of Dragons, the World of Ice and Fire, that book over there, that would be for you. Wow, we really ran a long time with this bit of history, so let's move on to discussing the
highs and lows.
The highs and lows. For highs and lows, I would say that we're thinking here. We decided this.
It's
really complicated.
Yeah, what did we decide?
What we have here is Daznak's pit as both the high and low, and I could equally say events at Stannis' camp, the sacrifice of Shireen, are also highs and lows. Yeah. It's a shame that we can't wholeheartedly endorse and sort of be wholeheartedly moved by what they did, because I admit when I first saw the episode, both times we've seen it, we looked at the episode, we kind of basically looked at it back to back. Very tired we are. I would say that the death of Shireen is just horrifying both times. That's not a problem.
The way that they did it, she really managed some absolutely horrific screams. That was
you'd have to be a stone to be unmoved by that.
Yeah.
And then when I first saw Daznak's pit, and specifically with Dany faces down Drogon and then rides off on him, I'll be honest, I got a little misty-eyed. It was fantastic to see that moment of her riding off of a dragon.
Unfortunately, I got How to Train Your Dragon vibes from it. I really wanted to, from what we'd heard what's going to be in this episode, or had a sense of what's going to come up, I wanted to like this. This is, I've been very disillusioned about this season. So, yes, it's hard for me to be positive about things and that just the whole sort of situation of the show now. But I really want to like this because I love that moment. It's fantastic in the books. It's like, it's like the end of a Game of Thrones with the birth of dragons. It's like the House of the Undying. It's like the Dracarys moment. It's, it's the continuation of that story. It's one of those magical moments in Dany's story. And the effects are amazing that they can do that. It's unbelievable that they can get this together. But when they can do these fabulous effects and yet fail on so many points to do the emotional setup and the logical setup right. If we look at this scene in the books, we're talking about, yes, they've turned it all to an internal threat, so you have the Sons of the Harpy during the attack, but in the book, Dany is there watching the fighting, and Drogon swoops in. She's not under attack. There's gladiators fighting, and he swoops in and starts attacking people indiscriminately.
Yeah.
And
first of all, there is the poisoning attempt. Strongbow was it's a chaotic moment.
I mean, it's possible that he senses the danger to her.
Yes,
it's absolutely possible that but she's not.
And first he swoops in and he attacks the boar that's eating or sort of goring Barcena.
Barcena, yes.
Yes. So and then it's when various Meereenese start attacking him, but he
starts immediately on her corpse as well. He's not making any distinction between her corpse
she's not a threat to him. But then he's indiscriminate when he starts being attacked by people, throwing spears at him and so on, and he starts.
No, he's just having, as far as he's concerned, maybe he showed up because he sensed a threat to Dany, or maybe he showed up because there was violence, and he just swoops down and decides to have a meal, and people start throwing spears at him. He gets pissed off.
Yeah.
Dragons, as I said, they respond to violence. He starts roasting people. I believe Histar calls out to kill the dragon.
Yes. And Daenerys on the same time is, at this time, she's getting tired of the compromises she's made with the Meereenese. She's tired of wearing the Tukar. She's tired
in the book, she has adapted their way of dress. She's tried to become more part of their society. And Drogon represents this powerful connection to who she really is. Yes. And she sees that they're threatening, they're hurting her child. So she jumps down from the stand.
She's throwing off the Tukar.
As she's running across it, she throws it off and, is down to basically just a shift. And runs up to him and, he turns around first.
Blast flame at her. She ducks under it.
Yeah. Snaps his teeth right in front of her face, and she grabs the whip from the pitmaster, and whips him across the nose and tells him to get down and
down. Yes, and he submits.
Yeah,
and in that moment, he's got a spear in him, and it's hissing, burning blood, and she basically just leaps onto his back. She can't even, it's so hot, she can't even think, she leaps
on to pull the spear out. I think this is important. She's doing it to protect her child. He's hurting. And when she gets on, Drogon gets what he has wanted all along. My rider on my back. And he takes off.
And it is a transcendent moment for her.
Yeah.
I mean,
she closes her eyes, and it's like she can't really reason herself what is happening. And then when she opens them, she's high above the pit.
And then suddenly it's yes. And I mean, there's almost an orgasmic thing. Yes. Take me now, take me, fly.
And I mean, that it sort of ties into the whole. She's got the prophecy of, she'll have 3 mounts to ride. It's love, and there's dread, and I mean, this is her dreadful mount. But there's a union between them that is almost like with a lover. I mean, they belong together, and she's finally giving in, and she's allowing him to take control over her in that sense and take him where she needs to go.
So I mean, it is a spectacular moment, and some of the mechanics of it. I mean, besides they did it, they achieved it at the end of the first season. The sort of the magical transcendent where when she walks into that fire, she's telling Jorah she's entered a sort of otherworldly space. Like she's not thinking on a she's thinking on a magical level. She's being moved by...
Same as when she goes into the House of the Undying.
There's something magical kind of... But here, it came off just...
Deliberate.
Very deliberate. Like, it's not even clear what she's thinking of. Like, she doesn't reach for the spear, for example. She's just saying, I'm going to go fly off on him.
Oh, here's my dragon. I'm going to fly off. Never mind that I am leaving Dario, Missandei,
that's the big
Jorah, and Tyrion standing there in a pit where there are still Sons of the Harpy attacking.
Well, what they did, though, is very silly. Because all of a sudden, as soon as she's on the back and she starts flying off, all of a sudden, Sons of the Harpy just disappear. They clear out, which is silly. Like,
I mean, she doesn't even make an attempt to tell Drogon, let's flame them before we take off to save my people. No. She just leaves them to have a joyride on the dragon.
He was hard. I mean, he was indiscriminate. I admit it. On the show as well. I mean, he burns civilians. We're trying to save. There's one of the second group of people that he burns, included Unsullied, who's fending off Sons of the Harpy, and he burns the Unsullied as well. So he doesn't really see a distinction.
No, but there's no real sense here that, yes, there are still some people attacking Drogon, but there's no real sense that she's getting on to save him.
Or there's no real sense, there's no real sense if she's planning to use him against the Sons of the Harpy. No. So I don't quite understand why they clear out, other than because they realize, oh, well, wait a second, this doesn't work.
No, but she's still leaving 4 people alone. There's barely any Unsullied alive, apparently, and she's just abandoning them. And then, as of course, we forgot when going through what happens in the books, you know, the moment of ultimate badassery that they, of course, cut out by killing Barristan earlier. Because when Dany runs into that pit and runs up to Drogon and he swings on her.
She can hear, we're not going to see him, but she can hear Barristan saying, here, dragon, try me, here. So he's calling, challenging the dragon.
He's run out and he's challenging the dragon to defend his queen.
So anyways, I mean, visual is spectacular. Yeah. The logic of the scene, in particular with the situation, because they wanted these Sons of a Harpy to surround them, and it doesn't work very well.
There's so many holes you can poke in.
I do have to give credit to that one Son of a Harpy, who at the very moment that the first scream of sound, everyone stops, and you can see the guy immediately turn and start running. Like
he hears dragon and he goes, fuck that, I am out. So either that was a really smart Son of the Harpy, or it was an extra that really needed to go to the bathroom.
It was very funny because all the others are standing, and this guy just turns and starts taking off right off. Like he noped his way out of her, as they say these days. So I mean, there was some other good stuff about the scene. Like Histar had finally some good dialogue. Well, I won't say finally, but he really performed really well, and he dies an ignominious death. You know, but they do that interesting thing where he shows up late. Are we supposed to suspect he's going to be involved in this? And then the twist is, no, he's not. Or is it, they're going to reveal, well, he thought that he had an agreement with them about killing her and they weren't planning, he was still a collaborator in their eyes. Or maybe he was setting up a separate attempt to kill her. Or...
Because apparently it seems they are married, because they talk about being the king and the queen.
So I'm surprised, I'm really surprised by this.
And they are on the most awkward date ever, with Dany's not really ex, still current lover, hanging over their shoulder, being a smartass.
I found that I found it all a bit juvenile.
It was juvenile.
It didn't fit to me like what would.
Although it was nice that Dario got to be wrong and I got to smirk at him, but it was a bit juvenile having him hang there. And Tyrion's presence was kind of pointless.
He doesn't have a lot to say or do.
He saves Missandei.
He saves Missandei when they forget him and he has to defend himself and her.
Oh, yeah, well, Dany forgot Missandei too.
Yes, that one I thought was a little, but maybe she's so overwhelmed. I mean, it can happen, but it felt a little
She tends to look out for her people.
She does.
But now she left them all.
So I don't know. It's spectacular, but like the foundation of it, if you start looking at it, it starts feeling like it's somewhat unearned, some of what they did. Like they're just taking sort of the magic.
And this is the problem that I'm seeing more and more, the more that they deviate, is that they have the moments that they want to get to, and sometimes they carry out these moments quite well. But the path there is often, they're hand-waving things. It really feels like they're just, we want X to happen, so we'll just, they got there somehow. Yeah. And then that's part of what we had with, if we're going to talk about the other sort of high-low of Shireen's sacrifice.
Well, I think better to discuss this separately.
Yeah, okay.
We'll just focus on this one. But,
sure.
The other thing, some other positives, the soundtrack, Ramin Djawadi brings out some really cool bits of music. Mm-hmm. In particular, there's a bit which I assume is supposed to be a choral piece of music in the background rather than being the sons of a harpy saying something. I didn't quite follow that, but something in Valyrian. And then the music when she takes off. All of that is, again, it's spectacular and it's magical and the production values are there and I think their hearts are in the right places in trying to capture this, but
I think Ashley would have liked to see the music be more chaotic when she takes off because it should have been a chaotic moment.
It should have felt more like, I mean,
like not unthinking.
It can't match what is in the book because it sells the idea of it. This is a supremely chaotic and it is a destined thing. You're going to get beyond the pure logic of things. And there is something irrational. There's something magical about it. I mean, magic is irrational. And it feels so deliberate. Like, yes, it feels magical when she takes off, but there's, leading up to it, it just feels strange. And I don't quite, I'd be interesting. Yeah, I don't quite get it.
And she's smiling a bit much, so hence How to Train Your Dragon. It's kind of, it's more of a like, oh wow, I'm flying my dragon. Like,
I don't know. Certainly the one bit that worked too well for me is where they're doing the shot where she's sort of and then looks back over her shoulder and there's no motion or anything, so it's like they just had her straddling.
That one felt very Disney kind of.
Yeah, that felt a little. It felt like like one of those things where a cheap film period piece where you're trying to make you believe that they're running on a racing horse or riding a racing horse or so on.
Or flying a dragon.
Yeah, or flying a dragon. I don't know. I'm disappointed. I think it is spectacular, and there are good things in it. There are good things in it, absolutely. It's just that I can't wholeheartedly say like this is.
I mean, yes, people keep saying
it doesn't live up to.
No, but people keep saying that you should just look at it for what it is, but you can't. I'm sorry. It is an adaptation.
Even if you look at it for what it is,
there are logical problems with it.
Like the situation where they kind of have to basically just pretend that Silverheart will decide to take off.
Yes.
Despite the fact they've been fighting.
Well, I'm talking about the emotional quality of it. You can't disregard the fact that there is something that it is based on that evokes a certain emotion, and if you're not aiming for the same thing, or if you're not able to achieve the same thing, I don't think you're doing your job right.
Yeah.
So,
I think that covers that. Let's go on to a story by story. Stannis' camp is a pretty significant area. It's the first place we see. Yeah. It's wherever we see the fruits of Ramsay's plan and his 20 good men.
Yeah. Apparently, Stannis does not have any good men at all left because I can buy that they are exhausted.
Yes.
And have poor, guard of the camp, although that poor is really terrible. That's lax discipline.
I mean, that's 20 guys infiltrating throughout the camp, setting up fires, and then particularly the one that made no sense is the hundreds of horses. So they set fire to some stables, I guess.
There are no grooms, apparently, guarding the horses, keeping an eye on the horses.
The horses are so exhausted, they aren't able to protest anything when, horses tend to make noises when unusual things are going on, especially when they're... So
especially when they're being set on fire. It's absolutely true that if you set like a stable on fire, the horses will actually not run out. They go for the safety of the stable. So that one horse running out is actually doing
an
unusual thing. But
it doesn't feel very real. It feels like, and to me, it's so unnecessary. That's my problem.
Yeah.
The book situation, the situation they painted before was just fine.
Yeah.
They're stuck. They're snowbound. They're starving. There's nothing.
It feels like they just didn't want to repeat that, it's gotten worse. We have to make it a moment that makes it...
they should have made it look much worse. There should have been frozen bodies being piled up. There should have been, people tearing down tents that have no longer, any occupants to try and get themselves warmed, throw them onto the fire.
They should have lost a bunch of horses just to
They should have shown people trying to butcher horses and, the horse meat is frozen and they can't... They should have showed all the deprivation, and they don't really sell that.
It wouldn't have taken that much longer.
And the other thing is, it's all about giving Ramsay a role in it. I just don't feel what matters. It doesn't. It's not a necessary thing. It doesn't give Ramsay anything to do because he doesn't show up on the screen.
No.
it's just the only thing I can think of is they're thinking of that it's going to give Stannis a sort of personal motive, because of what he had to do because of it.
Stannis is going to be so lax about the situation anyway. Stannis doesn't take fighting people seriously, or
no, not lax, but he's so emotionally shaken by what he feels he had to do, as in sacrifice his daughter, but he's going to make mistakes. Okay, I don't know. I don't know, but so that felt unnecessary. But other than that, everything that follows, especially Stannis with Braavos, where right off this gives us a plan. Okay, you go off. You have to convince Jon to send supplies and so on. And Braavos buys it. That's a great scene because what Stannis is thinking. I mean, he saw Melisandre and Selyse looking at him. He knows what he thinks is the only thing he can do.
Other than Braavos telling Shireen he'll be gone for a few days. But
they
despite the snowstorm and everything, apparently.
But the Braavos scene, I mean, all the scenes are really good here at this point on, I think. There's no real issue.
It is obviously very much into some kind of spoiler territory. As in...
let's get through it, and then we'll touch on this, because then Stannis and Shireen, and that's beautiful. They bring back the Princess Shireen of House Baratheon, real gut punch there. Yeah. Some will say, it's manipulative. And I was thinking about this, manipulating people. Well, art is manipulation. Yes. Good art.
We love Gabriel K. There's lots of people that say that his books are emotionally manipulative.
What is art? I mean, it's supposed to make you feel things.
It's supposed to make you feel something.
So, and then that's the horrifying one when she's brought to a stake. And she realizes what's happening. She starts screaming. And Stannis comes out, and Selyse come out, and she's screaming for her father, she's screaming for her mother. And I mean, I was... When we saw that shot, I had a completely different impression of what was happening. I thought, my suspicion was Selyse was never going to break over Shireen screaming for help. But when we see her in the snow, it's over something else.
Yeah.
But no, it is, she can't. She can't bring herself to it at the end. And she tries to run, and it's Stannis who, iron-willed as he is, does it. Who sends his men after her to stop her. Who stands there watching. Not quite watching at the end. He can't quite look at his daughter burning. Powerful stuff. Yeah. Stephen Delane is absolutely restored in this episode. Kerry Ingram did a fantastic job. Sorry,
he really, if anyone should get a nomination for this season,
he's
been the most consistently superb.
I would say so. He is the most superb actor of the season, bar none. I can't see any.
He's the one who's got a consistent good writing, and
I'm dubious, but maybe. There's fantastic stuff, basically. But, there's the foundation of... Now, I've got some surprises here. First off, I have fully expected that in the novels, the question of Shireen being sacrificed will become a real thing. And I've always felt that George is drawing from the Iliad here. Stannis is Agamemnon, and Shireen is Iphigenia. What is the proper... Iphigenia is how you say it these days, but Iphigenia?
I'm actually not sure about that.
With the proper Greek pronunciation? Doesn't matter. Iphigenia,
I think might
I'll say Iphigenia, because that's what people say when they name their daughters Iphigenia.
People do that?
Yes.
Jesus.
In the UK, at least.
But that's a bad name to have.
No, it's not. Well, okay, it doesn't have a great history to it, I guess.
Naming your daughter Pandora or something.
Yeah.
Or Eurydice, or
Cassandra.
Cassandra.
People do.
Yeah.
But in any case, in the Iliad, the Greek army is not able to sail to Troy because the winds are just constantly against them. And basically, it's Agamemnon.
Aulis, I believe.
Yeah, and Agamemnon is told, you have to sacrifice your daughter to Artemis to get the winds to change. And as I recall, a trick is used to suggest to her that she's going to meet her betrothed.
It's suggested that she's going to marry Achilles, actually.
Yes, and she's brought forward...
At least in some versions.
In some versions, others, and she's brought forward.
Pre-Iliad stuff, so it's mutable.
Mutable, very mutable. And, he carries out the sacrifice. Although then some say that she gets turned into a fawn, I think, and there's various stories about.
At the moment, Artemis takes her away,
Yeah.
and the usual thing with sacrifices to gods.
Where you do enough to prove to yourself, prove that you're willing to do it, and so in any case, that is a dark, that is a really complicated moment, captured really well in Age of Bronze by Eric Schanauer, a great comic book if anyone is a comic fan.
He's trying to do the whole of the Iliad cycle, basically, the everything around it.
Yeah, amazing. Go check it out. He's an award-winning artist, writer. Definitely worth checking out. But in any case, so I've always thought that something like this would happen. Stannis has shared the vision he saw of the king with the burning crown, but it turns to ashes, and he tells Davos, "You don't think I know what that means? But doing what's right is going to destroy me." But I don't think Stannis at that time has it in
understands what it's going to mean
to be destroyed.
He might just think, I'm going to die doing this, but
he's gonna. I think Stannis will be faced with the choice of killing his daughter, and he will do it.
But the circumstances will obviously be very different.
It will be very. See, now the speculation I had in my head about this season is that they were going to delay that. Stannis was going to say no at the last moment and stop it, and then. My speculation for the season is that he's going to get killed. Yeah. Brienne, we've said that the whole Chekhov's gun thing. Yeah. Episode 3, she says it. Well, it's going to happen. And at the same time, we got Melisandre saying, "I know that with my magic, I can bring him back. For Rosamur was doing it with Beric Dondarrion. I can try it. She sacrifices Shireen. She tries to bring back her king. Doesn't work, or she doesn't think it works. So maybe somebody else comes back." That's our speculation. Obviously, that is now wrong as far as that goes. I thought it would have been really clever.
Actually, I just realized also what you said now, because when we were talking about this after the episode, we thought that perhaps this had implications on Stannis in the books as well, where you assume that, there is speculation that he has died during the Dance of Dragons. Because of the claims and the pink letter. But if he's actually supposed to do the sacrifice, then he has to be alive.
Yes, that's true.
So,
see, I fully believe that he's alive at the end of that.
You started wavering a little bit, discussing the possibilities
of what they're doing.
Because of the thing that we think that they're going to be doing with Brienne and so on. But, I expect that the sacrifice will come up in the books as well, in very different circumstances. And I expect that it's going to be very powerful then as well. But this is one, we can't compare it to the books here. Because it's already happened. It's done it before the books. It's done it in very different circumstances. But at least
very powerful.
At least the moment of the sacrifice and the sort of the lead up, other than the premise for it having it happen, that was all very good.
Let's see. We will be moving on then to the Wall. The Wall, very briefly here, there's not really a lot of meat to it. First off, there's an eye roll. I know you think you get an eye roll for the false tension of the...
Are they going to let them through?
Are we going to let them through? Because...
And then the other eye roll. What the fuck are they doing on the wrong side of the wall?
Yeah, that's the thing.
They sailed to, I guess, Eastwatch and decided to march on the wrong side, as in north of the wall, where the freaking White Walkers and the Whites are. Do they think all of them were off at Hardhome, that they couldn't possibly have encountered some others?
There's no explanation. It is cheap. That's all I can say.
Did John get confused about North and South?
No, it's just cheap. They have no explanation. It's just they wanted it for that visual. They could just as well have them show up at Castle Black and have the gates barred of Castle Black and then have Alistair Thorne take his good time before saying let them in. But I don't know. It's.
They kind of wanted to belatedly replicate the moment from A Storm of Swords, I guess, with them.
No, you mean Dance of Dragons?
Isn't it a storm when they start passing through? No, is it?
Well, they start. Some of them start passing through in Feast for Crows, actually, I believe, when Stannis starts letting them through.
There is no John chapter.
There's no John, but there's Sam.
There's a Sam. That's true.
Yeah. Or it may have been in John's in Dance of Dragons. But regardless,
they passed that moment already. You can't
show them trooping off again. And also, obviously, in the Dance of Dragons, he lets Tormund's people through.
Oh, that's true. But
after negotiating with him. But This is stupid. It is. There's nothing. There's absolutely no like. We did it because we wanted the visual.
Yeah.
That's the only excuse they can use for it, and
it's a bad excuse.
This is bad. It's not like. It's the sort of thing that kind of.
Yeah, and then gloomy looks from Ollie again.
Yeah, Ollie again. Thorne says, you got a good heart. You'll get us killed. That's it. It's very brief. Sam tries to reassure him that, it wasn't fail. The other thing is, of course, I had the impression it was a few hundred people who got saved because they said we have 5,000 with us, and it didn't look like they had gotten 5,000 over, given how few boats they had, how long the trip took.
And in the gathered shot outside of the wall, it looks like at least 2,000.
Yeah, it's still a failure because there was thousands more beyond that, but it's a bit of an increase in the numbers. Oh gosh.
What's next?
That would be Dorne.
Oh no!
So first, the location again, the Alcazar is fantastic. It's beautiful. I was
Sadly, we missed seeing it when we were in Spain. We had a bit of a whirlwind trip.
Yeah.
And which we are going to be talking about someday when we have a little bit of time because it was amazing. But yes, we didn't manage to get to the Real Alcazar, and
it's gorgeous.
At least we get to see it here, and it looks amazing.
It does. I don't know what to say. It basically does end up following something of the novels. It's a Dance with Dragons, the scene with Balin and Swan. Instead it was Jamie, but it's Balin and Swan comes in, and they basically are agreeing. Yes, we'll send Marcel and Tristane to you, and all this stuff.
What the scene does reveal is that there is no way in hell that the necklace and the threat was anything other than something that Ellaria sent. It's quite clear from the looks.
I'm not 100% with you. I'm like 99% with you, but there's that 1% where maybe her look is supposed to be like, well, what are you looking at me for? I don't know anything about it.
Bullshit. Doran's follow-up with her, basically, now you swear allegiance to me or I'm going to kill you. And he's really pissed off with her for causing this whole situation. Maybe. It's not just that she reacted.
I just keep getting stuck on Delbio Pari's remarks apparently in an interview where he says that there's some
you're trusting actors to have.
Well, he says that there's some connection between the Lannisters and the Martells that are really gonna blow people away. And I think maybe he's just referring to the fact that it's more about because this episode you get the impression that Doran is all for Tommen.
Yeah.
He's like, I was going to say all for Joffrey because obviously there was a character who was called all for Joffrey in the books, but all for Tommen, saying, of course you have to do what my king says, But then we know from the novels that this is not the whole story. And maybe he's just referring to that, like he really is gunning for the Lannisters.
I'm sorry. There was no secret plot from Cersei to get Jaime killed.
I'm pretty certain I agree with you.
Was sent by Ellaria.
I'm pretty sure I agree with you.
Who is an idiot on the show.
It's just...
who was apparently completely swallowed
Amara's personality. Then the other thing about is after they do a sort of allegiance to me,
also in this scene, I have to mention the fact that Doran mentions Ellaria being the mother of 4 of his nieces, which is true in the books. The problem is that they've also made her the mother of Taini, and the 4 oldest sand snakes are Obara, Numeria, Taini, and Sorella. They've cut out. Well, you can't say what they could be around.
There are 8
somewhere.
children.
There's 8 children. The 4 youngest are supposed to be Ellaria. Taini's not one of the 4 youngest, as far as we know, unless they've shifted around people and now have some other older ones that haven't been mentioned. That would mean that she had Taini and 3 others, and then Oberyn had a kid with someone else, despite taking out with Ellaria, which is not the case in the book. So I think that they've gotten a little weird on how many sand snakes they actually have.
All they have to do is say that Sorella is the 3rd oldest and Taini is the 4th oldest.
No, that doesn't help, because Taini would have to be the 5th oldest for it to fit.
Why?
5, 6, 7, 8 should be Ellaria's.
Oh, no, yes, fine.
So they have to fit someone else in as well.
Yeah. But Oberyn, Freelove, he was very free with his love.
I get the sense that they don't quite know what they're doing.
It doesn't really matter to me. I'm now not. Why is that? It's more. I just roll my eyes and.
Well, Dorne, yes,
Dorne has been,
So we have the lovely scene in prisons again.
Now, the hand slap game, that is the game that infamously David Benioff played with while having drunk way too much at the rap party for the pilot episode of the original pilot with Jason Momoa.
Bad idea.
Bad idea. Momoa, there's a video, I'll see if I can remember to link it, it's on YouTube, of Momoa playing that game with somebody else. Basically, Benioff's wife, Amanda Peet, said, he came home and he was acting really squirrely. And then, like, what happened? It's like, and he basically admitted, I think I need to go to the doctor. I think I broke my hands. And revealed that he was very drunk, and Momoa hits hard, and his hands were he was in agony. So that game was based on that. So that was cute. And I mean, I thought it was cute when Tahini slaps her sister across the face and gets her.
Yeah,
I
showing that not even a slap is something that she can convincingly carry off physically.
It's very slow. She doesn't seem very fast.
And then her little boxing stance after it.
I don't know. The thing I was going to get back to about Eloria is then after that Elysian scene, she goes and talks to Jaime, and suddenly it's a very different Eloria, and she brings up Cersei, and she's just making him think about the love.
Making it sound incest is just fine in Dorne as well.
Incest is bestest. It was a fair point. 100 years ago, if you were named Targaryen, no one would have necessarily looked twice at you.
Well, no, but the fact that she started talking about it, is also in Dorne. Nobody would care. Okay.
But I'm not quite.
I'm not sure what this conversation is about.
I don't know if it's something that Dorne put her up to start having Jaime think about his relationship with Cersei, or if it's about.
He told her to go and make nice, and she does a really bad job of
I don't know.
false.
Yeah, I don't know. Dorne was fine. Alexander Siddig, I wish he got more, and he is a sterner Doran than the book Doran. I mean,
yes, I would have liked to see the weary, sad Doran.
All right, we'll take a little break to deal with our ravening dragon puppy over there, and then we'll be getting back to discussing Braavos. On the whole, I have to say that Braavos is one of the areas that I found more interesting. But again, there's a little caveat here. Yeah. It's just, something cockles, and she sees the arrival of Mace Tyrell and Meryn Trant. That was set up episodes ago when Cersei sent them off. They never really made much impact. I read the sending Meryn Trant to be a bit of a threat, like letting Mace is now. And also, not just there are no. As far as I can see, there were no Tyrell guards. There were Lannister guards, and there were.
Yeah. The problem is that Mace, as they're playing him, is far too stupid to realize that it is a threat.
Well, it's also we never see Marjorie refer, Lena refer to the fact that there's an implicit threat in what's happened.
It's true. So,
but that she's.
I guess it wasn't really meant like that. Then
I think it is. I just they've just not had anyone comment on the fact that Mace is an idiot going off basically his entirely in the care of Lannisters and Cersei's loyalists.
Yeah.
If they decide to throw him overboard,
if they make no mention of it, then yeah.
Now if this were something else, I could have enjoyed, but it's just the Mace Tyrell is such a buffoon. You can tell the actor is loving, kind of enjoying that sort of. I mean,
but old chap.
The old chap, or his
Did he run away from some sort of British farce?
Bernie and Wooster kind of thing. There is,
who the ever living fuck is Maegor III? I'm pretty sure that's what he says. We listened several times. There is no Maegor III. If they wanted to put on Maegor I, banning usury. Fine.
Or Aegon III, or somebody else.
But Maegor, then it is specifically noted.
There's no Maegor III. That's basically
the name Maegor was never used after Maegor the
Targaryen tree they themselves posted years ago, I think, on one of the official sites, didn't have a Maegor III. I don't know. I think this is some mistake, that they needed a king and someone.
And basically, for the Targaryens, having a Maegor anything after Maegor the Crude is like having a Hitler II.
Yeah,
basically. It's said they don't use the name.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know.
What they were
it's
thinking.
Not strictly true, because there's one use of Maegor after, but it's certainly not the kings.
No.
It's just weird. It's just like a silly thing. I don't get it. I mean, that was filmed in Croatia. Brian Cogman doesn't go to Croatia, so he wasn't there to correct them. I don't know if Dave Hill was around. I don't know if they just needed a king and they decided. I don't know. Maybe the actor was supposed to say Maegor the First, and he ended up saying the third, and they just slipped.
I mean, maybe it's vaguely possible we were mishearing first for third, but we listened several times and...
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Nice to see those...
The CG.
Yeah, the CG is seeing the Titan...
in various shots in the distance. That was cool. Yeah. Then the brothel. No breast on display. I was surprised by this. They usually find an excuse.
Apparently very...
Now, someone pointed out something interesting. The actress who plays Laura, I forget her name, who is the usual first customer of a day of Lana, is the same actress as one of the two women who was entertaining Salvador San in the pools in Braavos, in the baths in Braavos. And now we see her again, and she recognizes her and calls her sweetness, and has her patron buy some
I was surprised that the brothel madam doesn't want Arya there.
No, the idea is the oysters, they have the idea, but they are an aphrodisiac.
Yeah. And
they
out with her. And
I'm not quite sure, unless she has an official supplier who and she gets a cut, and so that was
that could be it.
Meryn Trant, of course, gets the Raft the Sweetling part here now. It's quite clear now that if you've read the Mercy chapter from The Winds of Winter, you can kind of guess where this is going.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's where we're taking it. I'm fine with this. I'm fine with, they do have to compress, they do have to cut characters, they do have to, and Meryn Trant is on her list for Syrio.
Yes.
I'm so tired. I'm thinking they're taking a while for me to get them.
End of the season fatigue.
There's not a lot to say per se, but it's just well done. It's well shot.
The comment from Jaqen when she gets back. Obviously, he must know she's lying. I don't think she's that accomplished yet. But she tells him that the thin man wasn't hungry today. Well, maybe that's why he's a thin man.
Why a man is thin.
Yeah, why a man is thin. Yeah.
Yeah, that was nice. Nice line.
But I think he knows she's lying.
He
should know.
I would guess that he has people keeping an eye on her and telling him, and he's letting this play out to see what happens, basically. Yeah. That's my guess.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And Mark Gatiss was good. You can see Mark Gatiss just kind of overly friendly buffoon of a lord.
Well, his expression is basically the expression we have when watching Beast.
I don't blame the actor. And he's playing it with gusto. Okay,
yeah, it's so silly. It seems so out of the setting and everything.
It feels very out of place, and it feels it's the wrong kind of humor for me. In that thing, I can enjoy Gilbert and Sullivan. I can enjoy Jim Portis.
But not in Westeros.
But in Westeros, he just feels like he's been transported from the wrong century, and it just the wrong genre, and it just doesn't quite gel.
Other than that, no, it's.
And obviously, there's a question. I mean, my understanding from what Gaddis said is the only episode in which he appears. So I'm actually a little disappointed that we didn't get more about the results of that meeting, or see more of that meeting and negotiation on what they were going to do, and also anything about Stannis and the Iron Bank. Do we know what the Iron Bank gave him money and support?
I suppose it's supposed to play out next season. I mean,
maybe
whatever happens here with Meryn, they're not going to go home straight away. And
gosh, you know what I realize? We're basically done.
We're basically done?
Yes, because we covered Marine already in the initial part. Is there anything that we're missing from that?
Not really, because it is the whole back half.
So
really.
let's try something new. Let's discuss a final summation, sort of ratings and eye rolls and all these things.
Yeah.
To kind of maybe, because I'll explain more. So final summation, I think what I would say is, the first thing is, the reason I decided we actually have to get back to kind of giving a rating or something is, people became very confused about how I received the episode. Because the fact is, yes, I had quibbles.
The previous episode.
Yeah. Quibbles about various aspects of it. Things that were, I didn't like the fast lights. There are certain things I didn't care for. But, when I went to the forum, I mean, I struggled between an 8 or a 9 for the episode, I admit. But I said, well, a 9 of 10. It's not as high as it's not the highest episodes I've rated have been 10s. And my comments were to explain why it's not a 10 for me. Now, Linda, of course, you're very disillusioned. You're much more jaded about it, and you find it, and also this sort of action thing doesn't impress you in itself.
I'm not really somebody who, like, an action episode is going to lift the whole episode for me. Especially not when it is a wholly invented action sequence. No. There's just really very little in that episode for me that there was nothing that made me, sit up and go wow or anything like that. So, and there were things that were really bothersome to me. So, I think I ended up settling on a 3. Maybe that's a little low. Even perhaps I should be more in the range of the 4 or 5s that I've been given. I don't think I've been higher than a 6 for this whole season. And it kind of shows that I'm just really struggling with finding anything to be enthusiastic about. There's not... I don't really care about most of the characters as they are portraying them. There hasn't been anything really... Well, maybe in this last episode, but I'll say that the Stannis sequence is actually... I'm not a big Stannis fan at all in the books. I kind of... I don't skim, but Stannis as a character... does nothing for me. And I don't really, Davos as a point of view, not really one of my favorites. Sorry. So, I'm not a big Stannis fan. I'm not kind of neutral on him. But Stephen Delaney's performance has been really good. So, if there's been anything this season that has felt very much like it belongs in Westeros and sort of gets my attention in that way, it's probably been his performances. Last season we had at least, that super scene with Dinklage and Pedro Pascal in the dungeon, which was, that one, barring minor quibbles, that was a wow moment. Yeah. I really, really liked that. There hasn't been anything like this season. So on the whole, I just feel...
I feel like if there was going to be anything like that for you, it would have been this episode. Actually.
It would have been this episode. I love Dany in the books. It's the Dany storyline, but I love it because of the contrast between the struggles and the mythical qualities. And I don't feel they've done either very well.
Mm. Yeah, no.
I understand that people will see that I'm really negative, but I cannot divorce this from the books. I don't know that I would be very invested in the show if it was just a fantasy show that I had not read the books for. I'm sorry. It doesn't really have a lot of things that appeal to me. Mm. It's fantasy, that's about it. But there are too many logical problems. There's too little long-term mystery.
To me, I think what you
there
would
are
say...
too few characters that I would care about.
Yeah, it'd be sort of... I think for you, it starts to feel like maybe you see this gorgeous, beautiful, mansion, and you go up and you start examining it, and you realize, it's made out of plywood, and there's a lot of sand in the foundation. The construction, it looks gorgeous, but maybe the construction has a lot of problems for you.
Yeah, I don't know, but,
Isn't that what you would say? But the problem is, as it goes, the way they've constructed the show is not...
I'm picky about the logic of storytelling. I want to be able to pick things apart and see that it holds up the way that the books hold up.
And things feel that they're earned moments.
Yes, and...
Because, they can do a lot with just the sound and the effects and the sheer money they can throw at scenes. But when you cut through the spectacular aspects of the production, and it is a spectacular production, when you try to get into the bones of story, it doesn't matter if it's
it's absolutely true that it would be easier to be wowed by just a spectacle if you didn't have something to compare with. That's probably true. That if you didn't know that these scenes could have much more emotional depth and richness and much more atmosphere, then, perhaps it would be easy to be blinded by the spectacle of it.
Well, at least not blinded, but at least taking the spectacle as a big part of it, and not necessarily weighing the story any more heavily. But yeah.
Because we see that people go, wow, over the big action sequences and think they are amazing, and then sort of
Well, sort of, I had someone said, "Oh, this episode, Hardhome redeemed the rest of the season." It's like, well, it doesn't. But the redeemed it. It's sort of, it makes it sound as if suddenly all the other episodes have suddenly gotten a few extra points. They haven't. There's still the episodes you didn't like, or you had issues with. But here, Hardhome shows up. So I think sometimes people.
It's natural, I guess, because you suddenly feel your spirits are lifted about the whole thing.
Yeah, like it was worth it to get to this moment.
And that happened a few times last season when I think, okay, why, maybe this could still be really great. And then, no, I guess not.
So, rating, I think I'd give this an 8 of 10. I think my problems with the Ramsay thing, the fact that the situation isn't really well explained. They didn't take the right approach to dealing with the situation with what Stannis was in. And then also the issues I have with both the way Daenerys is depicted interacting with Drogon in the end and the logical issue of sort of this is of a harpy leaving her friends surrounded by them. Yes, they clear out as soon as she mounts a dragon or whatever.
But she didn't know that was going to happen.
She didn't know that was going to happen. No one knew it was going to happen. It was just silly that they disappeared. So that was just sort of, they wanted a specific sort of action sequence. They had a specific idea and they didn't really care about the aftermath. They said, oh, we'll just hand wave it. So it's the hand waving that bothers me. So 8 of 10. And that's, if it weren't for Stephen Delane, it might have been a bit lower. So Stephen Delane's, and Kerry Ingram.
I guess.
Liam Cunningham as well. Tara Fitzgerald. Everyone really on the Stannis side of the story just really knocked it out of the park, I thought.
I guess, I suppose with that, maybe would at least get a 5-6, something along the highest that I'd given this season because of those performances. But, this should have been a 10.
Yeah. But no one, of course, cares about our rating. All they care about is the eye roll count. Yes. We've been forgetting about this each time. And I decided...
But it was actually, on the whole, fairly low. I counted 6 eye rolls, I believe.
I could enumerate them if you want to know what the eye rolls are. Which we listed. An eye roll for the ability of Ramsay to sneak in and set fire to horses without anyone realizing.
Yes.
An eye roll for Braavos saying it'd be a few days to get to the wall.
Yeah. Maybe that's a little cheeky.
The false tension at the wall, where they let them through.
And the fact that they're on the wrong side of the wall.
And the eye roll for the wrong side of the wall. So I think of an eye roll for that shot of Ollie again. He's ever present. Ollie seems to be more around than anyone else. I mean, he's more present. I'm pretty sure Ollie has had more time and more lines than Alistair Thorne. And the kid's fine, but I mean, Owen Teal's a great actor. Yeah. I don't understand why he's so underused.
Yeah. Did I actually give one for that? As in, or did
you didn't. I'm saying you should.
Yeah, but I'd already given 2 to the wall.
Yeah, so...
I'll spread the love a bit.
I roll for Ellaria.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
I roll for
call her like
the slapping game.
How do you cross Ellaria with the Bara? I don't know. Olaria or something. I don't know. Yeah. And
I roll for the slapping game,
and then there's Mace Tyrell, I think.
Yeah, and then there's basically Mace Tyrell. Oh, you didn't give one for Maegor III though, but I guess it just rolls into Mace.
Yeah, or maybe that was.
You really don't. You don't really have any. There has to be 7 because you don't really mention the issues with here.
But I mean, I don't think they're necessarily eye roll moments with Dany. Well, maybe leaving them behind should be an eye roll.
I say so. That's 7. Okay. 7 pleases the gods.
Yeah.
So that is our view on the Dance of Dragons, and of course next week the final episode will be coming. Mother's Mercy, which is not, guys. Yes, in the Feast for Crows appendix, Lady Stoneheart has the divine name of Mother Mercy, but the phrase "the Mother's Mercy" has already been used on the show. It's used multiple times in the books. It does not refer to Mother Mercy. It refers to the mercy of the mother of the 7.
Yeah.
So this is not about Lady Stoneheart.
Obviously, the Mother Mercy is probably a take on that in turn.
Maybe
a little bit, as
maybe.
in a grim...
I think it's more the alliteration.
Yeah.
I don't think George was entering Mother's Mercy, Mother Mercy. The Mother's Mercy is the concept of where he says, if you confess, you'll receive the Mother's Mercy depending on what you did.
Well, those who read the books can be pretty certain of a couple of the things that are happening in...
Yeah. But I give it up. I love Catelyn as much as anyone. I think Lady Stoneheart has a lot of is a horrifying. It's a very interesting element that George introduces. I think
it was particularly interesting what he was saying in the recent interview.
She's not Catelyn.
She's not Catelyn.
She has her memories, but she's twisted. She's warped. She's a creature. She's a creature of vengeance.
Him really stressing the point that those who return after death, they're not the same people.
There's something changes. So, but we'll probably have more to talk about that particular thing after the next episode.
Oh yes.
So until then.